Salams and welcome. Thank you for joining me in another episode of the Quran in English, Basics for Beginners. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Surah 18, verse number 60, Surah Al-Kahf, the cave. Behold, Moses said to his attendant, I will not give up until I reach the junction of the two seas, or until I spend years and years in travel. Now, there's a few lessons one can extract from this, and that is the love of knowledge. So Musa alayhi salam was really absorbed into knowledge. He was very knowledgeable, but then he heard of a person who was more knowledgeable than him, and he said, I will go to the ends of the earth to find this person because I want to learn from this person. And we must all learn from that knowledge is so important. And we need to see wherever we can get authentic and sound knowledge, and we need to make investments in that, and we need to strive in acquiring the best knowledge. So look at the way he is dedicated and determined. He said, I will not give up. Right? So he's showing that he's absolutely determined. I will not give up until I reach the junction of the two seas. Now, we don't know where the junction of the two seas are. Right? Some scholars have made it that perhaps it's there, the Red Sea. That's the most popular opinion. There could be other opinions as well, right? But that's more for the academic discussion. But the main lesson to extract from this is that he will not give up. He's so determined. Or he said, if I cannot find the junction of the two seas, I will spend years and years in travel until I find this person who has got more knowledge than me. Right. So let's just look briefly at the junction of the two seas. And the most popular opinion is that it is the junction at the Red Sea. Right. My drawing isn't all that lacquer, but let's just try and get through it. Right. This, just to get our context, this is Africa, the Horn of Africa. This is Egypt. This, now we're coming to Saudi Arabia. That's the Kaaba. That's Mecca. That is Mecca. That's Medina. And in the south, here we have Yemen. Then we have Oman. And here we have Dubai and the United Arab Emirates and all of that. And this is the peninsula, the Sinai Peninsula. This is Egypt. Cairo is over there. Alexandria is over there. This is the Suez Canal. This is the Suez Canal. And on the one side, on the west, we have the Gulf of the Suez. So on this side here, we have the Gulf of the Suez, and this we have the Gulf of Aqaba. Right? Gulf of Suez and Gulf of Aqaba. Right? And on this side here on Africa, this is the north of Africa. We have Egypt. Remember the Pharaoh and the pyramids and all of that. Egypt is over here. To the west of Egypt is Libya. To the south of Egypt is Sudan. To the south of Sudan is Ethiopia. And to the southeast of Ethiopia is Somalia. And this is the Horn of Africa. And remember that when the early Muslims were being persecuted in Mecca, then Nabi Sal'lal'laa'hu A'layhi Was'sallam sent them across the Red Sea to go settle down in Abyssinia. And Abyssinia is today known as Ethiopia. So they went across the Red Sea. And they were also famously known as the people of the boat, right? And they also did a double hijrah, because the first hijrah they did was from Mecca to Abyssinia, Ethiopia. And then when Medina was fairly settled after Battle of Badr and Uhud and so on, and when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam then told them they can come, and then they made a second hijrah to Medina, right? So these are the people with hijratain, the two hijrahs. So Musa alayhi salam is, remember that Moses or Musa alayhi salam, he grew up in the kingdom of Pharaoh. He was taught in the royal kingdom of Pharaoh. Because when Musa alayhi salam was born, then at that time, the king at that time, he was told that in today or in this year, someone has been born who's going to be your enemy. And with that, the king gave the instruction that all the newborn males must be killed. But then the mother of Moses got inspiration from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to put Moses in a basket and put him in the Nile River. And thereby, and we know that today the Nile River, it goes from, I think it's from Sudan, Ethiopia, all of these areas until it goes to Egypt, and then it goes into the Mediterranean. This is the Mediterranean. That's the Mediterranean. Masjid al-Aqsa is over there. Palestine is over there. Jordan is over there, right? So we get our orientation right. So from there, after the parting of the Red Sea, when Musa alayhi salam escaped with the people across the Red Sea, they were then for a while lost in the desert, wandering for 40 years in the desert. So whether it was during this time or some other time, but he then got information that this one person has got more knowledge than him, and he was then given an indication that it was at the junction of the two seas. So it was probably at this point in time, over here, because this is a one sea, that's the one sea, and this is the junction of the two seas. It looks like a finger, like looks like two fingers, and this is the junction of the two fingers. And Musa alayhi salam probably met Khidr alayhi salam here. Other scholars say, no, maybe it was somewhere here in the Mediterranean by the Gulf of Gibraltar and all of that. But I prefer this opinion because that makes sense. On a map, it's very, very clear. There's two seas there, and it's a junction of the two seas, right? So this, I prefer this opinion, but it's not really essential as to where the junction is. We must rather learn from the lesson. What lessons can be derived from that? Because whether it is at this junction or some other junction, the point is that Musa alayhi salam was really, really determined to find Khidr alayhi salam, a person who's got more knowledge than him. And in his determination, we must also learn to be lovers and seekers of knowledge, right? And that he placed such a high premium or high emphasis on knowledge itself. So, behold, Moses said to his attendant, I will not give up. I am really determined. I will not give up until I reach the junction of the two seas or until I spend years and years in travel. But when they reached the junction, they forgot about their fish, which took its course through the sea straight as in a tunnel. When they had passed on some distance, Moses said to his attendant, Bring us our early meal. Truly, we have suffered much fatigue at this stage of our journey. He replied, Saw you what happened? When we betook ourselves to the rock, I did indeed forget about the fish. None but Satan made me forget to tell you about it. It took its course through the sea in a marvelous way. Moses said, That was what we were seeking after. So they went back on their footsteps, following the path they had come. Now, I find this very, very interesting because you must remember, this is absolutely fascinating, the story about the fish. Now, here's Moses, right? Here's Moses and his attendants. Let's just go to another page because there isn't much space here. So here's Musa alayhi salam. There's Moses. And an attendant, because normally in the desert you don't travel alone. You have someone to help you with the horse or the camel or to prepare the meals and so on. Now, remember in the first verse, Moses said, I will travel for years and years. Years and years. Or I will go as far as the junction of the two seas. That means he's prepared for a long journey. That means they must have taken provisions with them. They took a lot of food with them along the way and whatever else they needed for this very long journey. But why was there a fish? Now, I've read different explanations to that, but the one that I prefer myself, and I'll explain to what it is. One of the narrations that I read is that the author says that the fish was a miracle. That means that when Musa alayhi salam came to the junction, when they came here to the junction, and the fish came alive and then started swimming away, and that was a miracle because the fish was like a fried fish, ready to be eaten, and then it swam away. And they said, no, that was a miracle. But I prefer the other option. I say, why should the fish have been fried? Because there is a way to have fresh fish. How do you have fresh fish in a desert? You have it when you have a container, and in those days they should just have a basket. So remember, you got a basket there, right? Now the inside of the basket, you line it with leather, right? So the inside is leather, so it's waterproof, and then the fish is swimming inside there. And the reason for this is, as long as the fish is alive, then it is fresh. It can be eaten any day. It won't go off, it won't get decomposed and all of that, because fish can go off very quickly. You can get severe diarrhea, and you can get all sort of problems, right? So my thinking is that the fish is alive. They got it in a container, a waterproof container, a basket, and got a lid over it. And for some or other reason, Musa alayhi salam has got insight that the point at which the fish disappears, that is what you are looking for. So the fish is very important. So the fish was not actually used to be eaten. The fish was actually the compass, because the point at which the fish disappears, they must say, that's what we're looking for. Now, because they traveled so far, eventually they probably got lost, or they said, you know what, leave that fish alone. We need to now eat that fish, whatever happens. But now the attendant said, you know what, we came to a certain place at the junction, and while you were asleep, I forgot to tell you, the fish jumped out of the basket. It started wriggling, and it went through the ocean straight like a bullet, like a missile, you know, a torpedo. It went straight as if it was in a tunnel. And he said, I was so amazed at seeing how this fish was going into this tunnel. It wasn't a tunnel, but it was going in the straight direction, that I even forgot to tell you about it. And meanwhile, they had moved away from here, and they were continuing on their journey. So they had gone quite a distance away. And then that's when the attendant told Musa alayhi salam that, you know what? You are asking about the fish, but I completely forgot to tell you that, you know, that earlier spot where we went, we were sitting under the shade at the junction of the two seas. That is where the fish jumped out. So this is why I feel the fish is very, very significant, because the fish gives a clue. It is an indicator. It is a sign to tell them that this is what you are looking for, and your search is ending here. That the long journeys you've been going through, the many hours or days or years that you've been traveling, and now your search has come to the end. So Musa alayhi salam said, okay, if the fish jumped out there, that is what we're looking for. So let's go quickly back again. And they went back again there, and to see, okay, can they get the source of their knowledge? So Musa alayhi salam said, Moses said, that was what we were seeking after. So they went back on their footsteps, following the path they had come. Join me in the next episode. Alhamdulillah.